There is a whole world of cinema to be discovered. You just have to overcome that 1-inch barrier known as subtitles. That was very direct. I was like, you have to overcome that subtitle barrier. This is that 1-inch barrier, a cinema podcast. Let me do that one more time. A cinema podcast.
It's like one of those dolls with the string on the back.
Literally,
you just pull that, and he's just got these intros that he does.
Whatever I need to do.
That's so good.
We're gonna cycle through them all now. Yeah.
I want a Nickel. You could definitely sell that.
Just
That would be awesome.
Top 5 intros.
And then it gets possessed.
Yeah, just as intros, and then says this movie was too long.
Yeah. Yes. This is longer than 90 minutes.
Longer than 90 minutes. Ew.
Yeah.
There we go. There's our 2-year anniversary episode. We have to come up with quotes for the doll for each other.
I think that's a good idea.
That is actually really good.
All right, I'll do it for real. There is a whole world of cinema to be discovered. You just have to overcome that 1-inch barrier known as subtitles. This is That 1-Inch Barrier, a podcast dedicated to international cinema. I'm Nicola Barrow, here with Josh Barry. I'll go one more time. I've had 5 hours of sleep.
With it. Yeah, I know.
After watching a 3.5-hour saga.
5.5 hours of movie, 5 hours sleep.
Yeah. Priority sorted.
I'm a 1-in-1 ratio guy. Okay. Last time, I'll get it this time. There is a whole world of cinema to be discovered. You just have to overcome that 1-inch barrier known as subtitles. This is That 1-Inch Barrier, a podcast dedicated to international cinema. I'm Nicola Barrow, here with Josh Barry and Kieran Griffiths. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show that you are a part of. It's lovely to have you here. How are we?
Here every week. Nothing's changed.
Here everyone.
No, that's right.
How are we going today? We good?
Yeah, good.
Good.
How do we feel after now watching the longest film we have done on the show at 3 hours and 27 minutes?
Yeah, what was the longest before?
I believe it was Stalker,
which was
yeah.
like
2:45-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we've had
this
a
is
couple
fair
in that
bit.
high twos. I feel like
Yeah.
Mommy was quite long.
It
What it
was
was.
about 2.5.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah,
It was on the
that's
longer
long,
end
yeah.
of things. Lagan was over 3 hours.
it
I
was.
think.
That's true. So Lagan
That
might
was-
be.
yeah,
yeah,
we'll see who's
true.
the.
But I will say, for a 3.5-hour film, just straight off the bat, definitely doesn't feel like the longest film that we've watched on the show.
That's true. That is very. I will say that as the 90-minute guy, I will agree with that. But we are watching we have watched Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. We went to Japan. This is the first time we, as a show, have elected to go to Japan. We've covered it with Drive My Car in our Oscar bonus episode.
and Tokyo Godfathers
And
for
Tokyo
a little
Godfathers.
Christmas special.
Oh, yeah.
So we've been to Japan before, but this is our first selected one, which is quite exciting. And Akira Kurosawa is a director. This was all of our introduction to him with this film.
Which is shocking, really, for
is
three
a bit-
people who watch films as much as
Yeah.
we do and love international films as much as we do, to have not watched an Akira Kurosawa film, arguably one of, if not the most important, influential,
yeah.
impressive directors in foreign cinema history.
Yeah.
We've really dropped the ball
Yeah,
there, but
true.
we're
Here we
making
are.
amends with this episode.
We picked the ball back up. And I guess influential director can also stem to the film, because Seven Samurai is one of those films that many directors, whether it's George Lucas is a big proponent of talking about this, where you got Western directors who all talk about how Seven Samurai, the structure of this story, the structure of the characters, and a lot of Kurosawa's filmmaking techniques in Seven Samurai were foundations for what we see. George Lucas often has said that Star Wars isn't heavily inspired by Seven Samurai. It was obviously remade into one of the most iconic Westerns of all time with the Magnificent Seven. And in all honesty, and I can say this with incredible conviction, Seven Samurai walked so Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon could run. If you ask me, if you want
So
Seven
are you
Samurai
saying
in
to me
space,
that if it
Rebel Moon-
wasn't, if we didn't have Seven Samurai, we wouldn't have Rebel Moon?
we wouldn't.
I wish we didn't have Seven Samurai.
It's like, would you go back in time and kill Hitler? It's like, no, I would stop Seven Samurai being made so we didn't get Rebel
Yeah,
Moon.
to
No.
stop Zack Snyder from making movies.
But it's an iconic film, and for very good reason. But for those who don't know, it is a story that takes place in 1586, and it follows the story of a village of desperate farmers who seek to hire samurai to combat bandits who will return after their harvest to steal their crops. The basis of the film is ultimately, we joke about the Rebel Moon stuff, but you get any team up movie ever. Like, I would even argue, like, things like, as silly as it sounds, the Avengers.
Oh, for sure.
don't
This is
happen.
the original
Yeah,
Avengers
Avengers.
Assemble.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
whole
It
meme,
is, yeah.
the whole meme in Rick and Morty of the "you son of a bitch, I'm in" when they're doing the heist episode of Rick and Morty. I was watching Seven Samurai, going like, how funny would it be if one of these samurais just goes, "You son of a bitch," I'm in, because this is the ultimate first team up movie as far as
I think
concerned.
it has been credited. Sort of, obviously, you can't prove that it's the first to do it, but
Sure,
a lot of film critics say this is the first film to use that popular trope of like a ragtag team of heroes banding together to protect the little guy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like you said, it is the Avengers.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
Star Wars. It's you know, it's incredible.
It's
so.
Big Fellowship of the Ring.
Very much so.
Like,
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
which would have been written before Seven Samurai.
Well, that's what I thought that
Kurosawa's
as well.
inspired
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe.
I mean, everything's a rip-off of a rip-off of a rip-off.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
But I think within sort of broader film, it's definitely one of, if not the first example of that, which has become a very common cliche trope in films, is that, group of, you know, you've got like, everyone's got a different skill set. It's like that Ocean's 11 thing as well, right?
Yeah,
like you've got a group of people all with a different skill set, and one's like the really serious one, and one's like the comedian.
Really all different
One's the master
personality.
tactician who can do everything.
Yeah.
One's you got the leader, of course, but he's a broken man. He's got trauma and demons from his past that he's like, I gave up this life, but I'm coming back. Like, that's exactly what this does. And it's the 70th anniversary of Seven Samurai this year. It came out in 1954.
So it's one of the oldest films we've watched on the show as well.
Yes,
So
only M would have come just before it, I think. So I'm picking up oldies. I'm getting
You have picked two
a bit of
oldies.
nostalgic cinema. And with that, I guess we'll quickly say with the 70th anniversary, there's a 4K restoration of this coming out in cinemas around the world, I think, in October, which, without spoiling too much what we're going to say, I think we would all probably highly recommend checking it out, not just because if we think it's a great movie, but it is one of the most influential films in cinema in general. And I think
It'd be an
4K,
amazing cinema experience.
it's just that the restoration of it would be incredible, because
And
I
you
watched
should
it
get
on-
an old school intermission with it as well. So
You would, I would say so.
Which
you
we
would
all got
hope
on
this,
the
you know,
home media release.
Release of it,
which we love. Every film over 3 hours should have an intermission.
Bring it back.
Yeah. It's just good. You know, I sit down for like an hour and a half. I want to get up. I want to stretch my legs. I want to stop looking at Leonardo DiCaprio pretending that he's mentally challenged. I feel very strongly about Killers of the Flower Moon and the runtime of that film.
The needing of it.
Unbelievable. This was the most expensive Japanese film ever made at the time.
I can.
But do you know what's
imagine.
crazy? Expensive is it's 210 million yen or 650,000 US dollars. What this movie pulls off, with of course a lot, 70 years ago, a lot of money, but it's
huge.
This is a massive scale film. And Kurosawa actually talks about, for not just this film but a lot of his films, the idea of having fully built worlds, practical sets. These villages are full villages. It's not just a stage or not green screen, but a set stage. He's important to him for his actors as well. He's very much, as well as an actor's director, he's said multiple times. And the idea of putting them and immersing them into these fully built worlds is incredible. But we don't just have these era appropriate costumes and sets and whatnot, but there's massive action scenes in this film, and things are burning down and people are getting shot and stabbed, and it's epic. It's truly an epic film.
It is huge.
And for a first Kurosawa, and knowing how good his filmography is still acclaimed, outside.
I can't believe he's made like over 30 films.
Yeah, it was insane. He's one of the most prolific Japanese directors of all time.
And I mean, you rattle off some of his films. You've got things like Rashomon, Ran, Ikaru.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of. He's not just a one-hit wonder as far as films go. He has got a pretty impressive catalog.
Rashomon as a film is just now used as a term to explain a type of film where things are told from different characters' point of views. They call that a Rashomon film.
Oh, we saw that with The Last Duel, which came out recently. It also features in possibly one of my favorite little jokes of all time from The Simpsons.
Oh,
when they go to Japan, and Homer's very reticent about going to Japan. And Marge says, "But Homer, you love Rashomon." And he says, "That's not how I remember it."
That is good.
Which, if you know what Rashomon's about,
that's funny.
You'll laugh. If you don't, you won't. But I love that joke. It's such a throwaway line, but it really tickles me.
But yes, so Seven Samurai is at its core just a basic film about it's a ragtag group of samurai that this village gets attacked by bandits, and the bandits go, "We're going to come back because your barley's not ready yet, and we're going to come back and kill yous and take all your barley." And so this poor village they don't have any money, they don't have a lot of food, but they can offer some to potentially a hungry samurai to help protect them. And we go on this journey when they do finally find a samurai about 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
That samurai goes, well, we need more samurai.
I was waiting for we need 7 samurai. If we're going to do this, we have to become the 7 samurai. What are we, some kind of 7 samurai?
And ultimately, like the first, I would argue, 2 hours of this movie after that initial setup is almost like this road trip hangout movie of these samurai coming together and sort of getting to know each other. And you kind of just sit with them for.
Well, you do. Because they're getting to know each other, we get to know each of them individually.
I loved it.
Yeah. They feel really fleshed out and like very distinct individuals. Like you have these the 7 samurai, but they all sort of have their own unique personalities and skill sets, and you know, coming from
even things like
backgrounds.
morals and stuff, like the things that they've done and that they're willing to do. And whatnot. And the leader of the 7 samurai, the first samurai that has happened across, is named Kanbei, who's played by Takashi Shimura. And he's sort of like, he's a more worn out samurai. He's been doing this for a while. He's sort of getting towards the end of his samurai career, I guess you could say. But his
introduction, that
scene is great.
Yeah,
that's great. Show, don't tell.
Yes.
Storytelling.
Scene, the shot that I love is after he goes into an altercation where he gets to sort of show his skills, his prowess. But we don't see it as an audience. It all takes place from the outside of this sort of hut, and we hear a lot happening. And what emerges out of there, and how that and there's I thought it was one of the most awesome shots of the movie, is just him walking out after someone throws his bloody sword on the ground. I was like, that's cool. I mean, Kurosawa's doing this in 1954. This is badass.
And you can see with scenes like that, and like the crowd watching on, you know, all starry-eyed at the samurai, you can see where the influences for westerns came from. Like, there's definitely, you know, you can see in like the Sergio Leone stuff, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how sort of Clint Eastwood is portrayed in those films.
These
you can see
stoic
that
types. They're not saying, like, it's that show, they're not saying a lot, but they have these looks, these like, I've seen a lot of stuff, don't mess with me sort of thing. He's like, because this is what I'm capable of.
It's really good storytelling for his character as well, because he cuts his hair off.
Yeah.
Which is a huge...
That's a big deal for a samurai.
Yeah. So straight away, you kind of realize where he is in his life, where his head's at.
He's regarded to as a Ronin
kind of
which is often like I was just looking up as like a wanderer samurai. He doesn't have a mentor anymore.
Yeah.
So awesome introduction just to the first of the 7.
Yeah,
and he's the leader of the group. Kanbei is the leader of the group, and he brings them all together. But I think he, not to jump too far ahead, is probably my favorite performance. Of the film. I think
there's
really
bigger performances there, obviously.
There's a very big performance.
But yeah, for him, I think his relationship with each of them. He's just got a really beautiful, warming smile. There's something really endearing about him that there was a few things I wasn't expecting from the movie, probably how heartwarming and endearing it was. And also how slapstick comedy.
I was going to say, it almost plays like a comedy for most of it.
For the first half, for sure.
With this definitely a certain drunken character. Kikuchiyo, I believe is how you pronounce his name, played by Toshiro Mifune, who is quite a well-regarded actor. I think in Japan, when I was reading about him, they say he's like one of the most respected Japanese biggest actors come out of Japan. With 180 screen credits, and he worked with Kurosawa 16 times.
Oh, wow.
So, but he is the big performance of the film, and he rocks up early on as well. And he's sort of almost trailing around, being like, there is a point in the film where there's only going to be 6 samurai. They're like, we've got enough. We've got who we need.
We can't find that 7th.
Perfect number. And then Kikuchiyo comes in and he's like, but guess what? I can do samurai shit too. He's drunk as hell at this point as well. He's like, watch me be a samurai.
The way he just holds the sword. To me, it was so Looney Tunes kind of.
Very Looney Tunes.
I don't know, I got this Daffy Duck feel of
but there's this like very like sort of like bravado swagger about him. He's sort of the comedic relief of the film. So. But then as it kind of goes on, as is often the case, I feel with like comic relief characters, becomes very sort of heartfelt and sort of has like a big emotional swing, which we do get sort of halfway.
One of my favorite scenes is when he addresses the village when the samurai do end up when the team form and they go back to the village. The villagers are initially like, we don't know about this. Like samurai are part of the reason why our village has not prospered for a long time. We don't have a reason to trust them. And then as soon as there's some minor scare, which is maybe brought on by Kikuchiyo, he may have done it himself to prove a point. He's the one who then rallies everyone together and is like, as soon as something bad happened, you cried out for us. We're here for you. Like, so I do like that he does become this far more endearing, because there was parts early on where I went, ooh, am I going to get 3.5 hours? This guy. Early on.
But I mean, he's the big connection between them as well.
Massive,
obviously,
right?
he was a farmer before, as he sort of says.
Yeah.
So he becomes that real connection between
his introduction is really interesting because they sort of find out that he's just pretending to be a samurai. He has this scroll that he carries around that's sort of his proof of his lineage. And he, the other samurai,
the reveal of that when he's looking for it on himself and losing it.
The other samurai questioning whether he's a legitimate samurai, and he sort of pulls out the scroll and he goes, "Look at this. This proves my family history." And, that's my name there. And they go, "Wow, you look really old for an 11-year-old.
Really good.
Interestingly, though, Toshiro Mifune, who plays Kikuchiyo, was actually meant to play a different character. The film was originally 6 samurai.
Interesting. Okay.
And then Akira Kurosawa and the other guy that wrote the film with him decided that they wanted to make it 7 samurai, and they gave Toshiro a new role, which was the role that he ended up playing. And a lot of his dialogue was ad-libbed.
Oh, that's cool.
So he basically, Kurosawa basically just went, "Do what you want with this.
Make this character
is your
yours."
character." Which makes sense if he's such a well-regarded actor in Japan.
Sure.
He's the sort of actor that you can trust to go, "This is your character, just run with it."
Yeah, wow. Okay.
And he does.
That's awesome.
And
that
I really liked his performance.
I liked it as
well.
There are, I would say I liked it more than I didn't. There was definitely points, now you've brought that up, I kind of go, okay, that makes sense. There's probably some scenes where I do feel like it might go on a little too long. Like they made, and that's not just because it's a long movie, but there's just certain moments where he kind of gets to run rampant where I've gone, you could have wrapped that up a little bit quicker. But he's funny. He's so funny, and he does become a lot of the heart of the second half of the film.
Yeah, I love the arc of his character for sure.
Do we have any other
That's crazy to think that, because, like his character arc kind of almost becomes the glue of the film.
Yeah, it's the linking bridge between the villagers and the samurai, because we find out that he's sort of the orphaned child of a village, a farming village that was raided by bandits, and now he's protecting. He's like, well, I'm not a real samurai, but I know these people.
Yes,
I know the pain that has been inflicted.
I wonder if that's how it came up. They needed that link.
Yeah, I do wonder, but I don't think you could have the film as it is without him. I think outside of Kanbei, who's the leader, I think he's the most important character.
I would agree as well.
Yeah.
Another character, because I don't want to break down all 7 samurai, because some are cool, some have smaller roles than others. The other one does stick out to me is Katsushiro, who is a younger man who is very heavily sort of infatuated with Kanbei and the idea of being a samurai. And his father kind of wants him to be like, I want you to pursue this. And Kanbei's like, nah, you don't want to be, you don't want any part of this shit, Ricky Bobby sort of stuff. So like,
but that's another cliche, right? You've got the old master and the young apprentice who's sort of really doe-eyed and looking up to the veteran, and he's sort of like
you do.
Yeah, he's like, no, this is not the life you think it is.
I've got 50 years of trauma, man. You don't want this. Like,
you should see my therapy bills.
But he's another character who I think as well has a fantastic arc throughout the film, as he sort of becomes more and more, I wouldn't say desensitized to it, but just aware of Kanbei's experiences and what they're about to go up against with these bandits is incredible. I do love the camaraderie between the 7. I think the banner reveal is one of the best scenes in the film. And the banner, for those who don't know, is like the Criterion Collection cover of the film. And we've got 6 circles on there for the samurai, and then the triangle there for Kuchio, which is hilarious. Like I thought that, but it was such a nice moment too to see these like ultimately people who aren't all bonded together have that moment where we're like, we are the 7 samurai.
Yeah, it's that real,
that
ragtag team, like I keep saying, up against the odds. You know, there's like 40 bandits versus 7 samurai and a bunch of, you know, villagers.
Bamboo sticks.
You know what
I mean? It's crazy.
But it is really uplifting. It is really feel good. And you just, you think about all these films that you've seen that feel like they're riding on the coattails of this. Like I was just reading some of the, you know, films that sort of were influenced by that trope. And Roger Ebert mentions A Bug's Life as an example of that.
I saw a thing saying that A Bug's Life is literally
7 samurai.
Because there's 7 bugs in that, isn't there? Right? I think so.
I've not watched that film for so long.
I watched it a lot growing up.
But is that not the whole thing? Is that the locusts are trying to steal their food?
Ants teaming up with caterpillars, teaming up with it's incredible.
Man, I want to watch Bug's Life again. That is an underrated Pixar film. But it's just insane that you've got this animated Pixar film that is basically just a kid's version of a Japanese film from the 50s.
Disney love doing that as well. Like Lion King is Hamlet. You know, so they love pulling from these.
Yeah, they're good at that.
It's a tried and tested story. Like it was good. Like we only know 70 years later in retrospect, but like the 7 Samurai is an incredible story, and it's a fantastic foundation for so many things, and that's why it's withstood this 70-year test of time. That's why I can still watch things like whatever you feel about Marvel, whatever. But like the Avengers was cool. When we see these team up movies like that, it's cool to watch. Ocean's 11 is fantastic because we get such a dynamic group of various characters.
And you love watching it come together.
You do.
Like, you know what's going to happen. You know there's going to be 7 samurai, but you love watching where they recruit them from and who they get into the team. And, you know, like, you always get those scenes of, like, I think about, is it X-Men First Class?
Yes,
when they go into the bar to try and recruit Wolverine. And it just like scenes like that.
It's
it's a great scene.
It's a great scene.
But you get scenes like that so much in those kind of films where you got 2 characters like go into a bar or something to find like this character is a bit rough around the edges, but he's like, no, he's the perfect guy for us. I love it. I love seeing films that are the genesis of these concepts. You know, like it's a great story in and of itself. It's a great film in and of itself.
Great characters,
but it is just the influence of it is so undeniable.
Well, we've talked about the influence of the story as well. I think it would be impossible not to talk about the technical influences of this film as well. Joking about the Rebel Moon stuff, we bring it back to Star Wars, all these space 7 Samurai movies. I don't think we would have had wipes across the screen. There were so many 7 Samurai. We often credit George Lucas to like the wipe is the part of Star Wars, but I'm like,
this was it.
I was Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at his I was like, hold on a second. That's from fucking Star Wars. We're like, another
that was after this.
It was Kurosawa. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, to be doing this in the 50s
the
is
editing
just astonishing.
It was one of the Oscars. It was nominated for the 1957 Oscars because it didn't come out until far later in the US. Was editing. Not surprising at all, because it is just such, for a 3.5-hour movie, like Kieran said, it flies by because I think it's so tightly edited together. I love certain ways that scenes transition to other scenes. I love when we, especially as the 7 Samurai group grows and we start seeing certain people, their abilities and their skills, and watching everyone else watch their skills and be like, they're going to be a good fit in the team. Like, it's ultimately a hangout movie. And it's
well, it is.
But it's just so tightly edited together, and the way Kurosawa moves the camera around, whether it's action or even just conversational scenes. I love in the barn when just before they're going to go to the village as the 7 Samurai. And we kind of are almost like watching it from certain different parts of the barn, but we're not in the group just yet. Like they've just formed, and we're kind of still watching it from the outside until they get to the village when we're fully immersed into it. I just think like...
there's a lot of those scenes where you're at different perspectives, kind of depending on where the story is.
It's incredible.
And Kurosawa was heavily involved in the editing process as well. You know, so he was in the editing suite. He was making these decisions on how to structure it, and I think that is why, as you said, Nick, it feels so well paced. because that he sort of has that complete creative control of it. One of the things that I really do love, when you're sort of reading the story behind the film and the filmmaking process, because it was the most expensive Japanese film ever made at the time, there was a lot of pushback on, from the production company being like, oh, you're building these massive sets, like you're using multiple cameras, which was not really done at the time, because he wanted, to be able to capture the action scenes, especially from different angles, and have the action look consistent, because you're never going to be able to get the action looking the same way in multiple takes. And they're like, oh, like it's blowing out,
as
we're going to have to,
companies do, getting in the way.
We're going to have to shut down production. And so when they did that, Kurosawa would just go fishing.
I did read that,
because he knew that they'd already invested so much money into it that they weren't going to shut it down. So every time they threatened to shut it down, he just went fishing.
I love it.
And he just went, they'll call me when they decide they want to start up again.
How good is that? Because I did read that they did shut it down, like they stopped filming twice. So I think they filmed this over the course of, I believe, it was
like 6 months.
I read almost a year. Yeah, I think is how long they.
148 shooting days spread out over a year.
Wow,
4 times the span covered in the original budget.
Wow.
Oh my god.
So Toho Studios closed down production at least twice.
Yeah.
Each time, Kurosawa calmly went fishing, reasoning that the studio had already heavily invested in the production and would allow him to complete the picture.
That just seems so Japanese, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I love it.
Okay, I'm going fishing.
Yeah,
I'm zen.
Like meditation. I'm zen. I'm just gonna sit.
What an absolutely boss move.
That's so good.
And for a movie like this, which is such a boss movie.
What in his catalog? How many films had he done before this?
Let me find that out while I make filibusters.
So Rebel Moon Part 1. The first influence I really took from that.
Is this the R-rated or the?
Sorry, the theatrical cut of Rebel Moon that didn't come to theaters. No, but I think the technical aspects of this film are amazing. Like we haven't even talked about how big the action scenes are as well. And the last probably like 45 minutes to an hour is just this barrage of attacks that bandits will attack and they manage to kill. I love that Kanbei is like tracking how many bandits they've killed.
Yeah, crossing them off. Yeah.
So satisfying watching those circles get crossed off.
Yeah. And like, as they kill more and more of the bandits, you just feel like this victory is coming closer and closer, but then they'll, one of the samurais will be lost in the battle, some villages will be lost.
But even how, there's a scene that fully focuses on how tired they are. Like they've been relentlessly fighting for days.
And it's not just this one big battle, it's these battles on different fronts as they're trying to defend this little village.
From every angle.
Which the variety then of scenes is great. Like a village attack feels like an action scene of the village attack feels completely different to when they're in the woods then. And then and jumping down from trees. And I love when Kuchiro kills one of the bandits and takes his uniform and then sits down next to another bandit.
And has a conversation.
How hard has this been? Jesus.
Hello, fellow bandits. That's a great scene.
It is a really good scene.
It's this variety, like that scene feels like I'm watching Seven Samurai, but there's these technical difficulties, differences that are different to the village attack, or when they do fight out in open field, or when they're all fighting on horseback. Like we get all these horseback fight scenes, and it's just like, this is 1954. This is astonishing.
So it was his 15th film.
Okay, wow. So he's about halfway through.
Which I did not realize how many films he did. But like you sort of look at the chronology of his big films. You had Rashomon in 50.
Okay, sure.
Ikaru in 52.
Okay.
Seven Samurai obviously 54.
Right.
Throne of Blood 57.
Wow.
Hidden Fortress in 58, which I believe was another big one that George Lucas took inspiration from for Star Wars, was Hidden Fortress. Yojimbo in 61. High and Low in 63. Ran in 85.
Wow.
So that's he slowed down a lot, sort of post.
But still, that's like a 35 year, like.
But you can sort of
his first film was 1943. Yeah. And his last film was 1993.
Wow.
So 50 years.
Yeah, of making.
Which, I mean, Spielberg and Scorsese would be
close to that. Scorsese Mean Streets was like 73 or 4, so he'd be on 50 years.
Yeah, and Spielberg, I think, was early 70s as well with his first film. So, I mean, it's an incredible longevity to release. And I mean, just those films that I've rattled off. Those are some of the most highly regarded films.
That's right. Yeah, you can see that he'd made those few ones before that were obviously big. So this one is just like, yeah, I'm going fishing.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get someone else. You're not going to get
incredible.
someone else.
Even outside of Star Wars, within Star Wars as well, like Rogue One, apparently a huge
that for
that
sure.
makes sense as well. Like Bug's Life.
Yeah.
And just so many different iterations of like the Invincible 6 and the Magnificent Seven's a huge one. Like even director John Sturges here has just said like he literally just adapted Seven Samurai into the West.
Yeah,
and you get that, right? Like,
I mean, it just works as a Western. Like samurais and good
gunslingers
have this real crossover in terms of like they're
they're just
sort of scoundrels,
souls,
but
right?
like have their own like code of honor as well. Like people sort of revere them and revile them.
Yeah,
you know, they have their sort of signature weapon,
whether
it's the revolver or the sword.
Yeah.
Very stoic. Like the crossover there is beautiful.
Yeah. Did watching this make you want to watch things like the Magnificent Seven or the Good, the Bad, the Ugly?
I definitely want to watch some of those westerns because I haven't seen any of those.
Oh, the Man with No Name
trilogy,
or the Dollars trilogy.
I've actually not seen those.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It's a genre that I've not
coming.
I mean, I've not seen them, but you see so many moments of those.
I mean, like the final duel in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where you've got the iconic Ennio Morricone score.
So I kind of feel like I, in theory, watch them. Like I know what they're about.
2 hours and 20 minutes around that. So
right, but I do. Watching this, I was like, I do want to watch.
And it's made me
4K coming out this year.
Really want to watch all of Akira Kurosawa's other films.
I did think you.
I don't think I'm going to watch. Made me really want to watch all of Zack Snyder's films.
No, but
I hate my eyes.
There's a part of me that, as someone who's loved movies for this long, I'm so glad I've finally seen Seven Samurai. I'm so angry I haven't seen any of other Kurosawa's movies leading up to this. Like, it just, if they are anywhere near the level of how good this movie is, I just need them.
And you'll be glad to know that this is his longest, so it's all gets shorter from here.
That's good. That's nice.
We're on the downhill slope. I'll save Rashomon to the last 85 minutes of it.
But it's the influence of it cannot be understated. And I think you have influential films that aren't necessarily great films.
Yeah.
And you have great films that aren't influential. But I think to have something that is such a fantastic movie in its own right, and then has had such a massive impact on filmmaking. And you talk to directors and big prolific directors, especially from like the 70s and the 80s and stuff. And you talk to Spielberg and you talk to Lucas, and probably James Cameron and Ridley Scott and guys like that for sure. This is going to be a huge influence for them. It cannot be understated.
I guess talking in the scheme of being a film from Japan, obviously a film that's so enriched by Japanese history as well. How do we feel Japanese film has sort of come in that last 70 years as well? My biggest takeaway, and I think comparing it to sort of Drive My Car, is I feel like a lot of Japanese directors don't mind sort of stewing in characters. I think that's a big thing I take away from Japanese films, that character seems to be the first and foremost thing in the film, and we get to sort of be with them for a little bit before either, whether it's a Japanese horror film, we get to learn about the characters before that. Something like Drive My Car, which is a drama, is you're stewing.
Yeah, I think you have nailed that, because that's exactly. But that's what watching this. I'm watching that first bit up until the intermission. Is exactly what I was thinking.
Sure.
Even take Audition.
Right.
That as a horror film. It's all character based up until the final 15 minutes.
Exactly, right. And then you don't forget it.
No, that's right.
And
this, in a much bigger scheme, is the same. Like it's this war epic samurai film that the battle doesn't start until
2 and a bit hours into the movie, right?
Yeah.
I think a big takeaway, another influence we'll probably talk about, is I see a lot of Quentin Tarantino in this as well. I look at it something even as completely tonally and genre different as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. To me, that's like I'm just stewing in these characters, and then the last 15 minutes of the movie is batshit crazy. And then something like Pulp Fiction, where you're stewing in that, and so definitely Hateful Eight, right?
I think you'd struggle to find a popular director who wouldn't cite some level of influence
from Seven
Samurai or Kurosawa as a whole.
But I just watched, after that, the next day, I watched 13 Assassins.
I saw that,
Takashi
Miike, yeah.
Which I'd never seen.
I haven't seen it either.
And actually, I got halfway through and I was like, this is Takashi. So, I'm a massive fan of Audition.
Have we done Takashi on the podcast?
No. But that is like, you know how you're saying like from back then to now, that's 2010.
Sure. Yeah, true. Yeah.
It as a theme feels like the same movie, just updated.
Yeah.
And I know that's a remake of an older one, 13 Assassins, but
still,
yes. I mean,
we're still telling that story.
That story, that's right.
Yeah. And we're still being moved by it. We're still being invested into it.
Yeah, it might not be samurai and villagers, but we're still telling that story. And there's a reason why it's so long lasting, which I think you sort of touched on, Nick. One of the big, I think, themes of the film and why it probably resonated with audiences at the time, especially, is that you look at when it came out in sort of the 50s, and Japan had just sort of gone through like the Japanese, I think, like economic miracle, they called it, which was basically the period of time from sort of like post World War II up to the oil crisis, where Japan became, you know, one of the powerhouses in sort of the world economy. You know, Japan went from a small player on the global scale to you know, this massive manufacturing country. But they weren't too far removed from these little farming villages. You know, this might take place in the 16th century, but those like little farming villages with, you know, no paths and no roads and everyone still living in wooden huts, that wasn't that far removed from the public consciousness. So I think that a lot of audiences in Japan
400 years before
could still, you know, were still familiar with these kind of places. You know, there might not be samurais and bandits anymore, but those conditions of farming and struggling and having to eat, you know, like barely anything to survive.
Giving your one thing that you have to try and, you know, get the help that you need.
Yeah, I think that still resonated with audiences in Japan at the time. And I think it's still a universal story in that we can still empathize with that.
We're all
position.
the underdogs of our own story, right? To an extent.
And we love that, that plucky underdog story, you know, people up against the odds. And I think that's why it's such this everlasting narrative.
Wow. Anything else we'd like to add? Anything we haven't touched on that you would like to bring up regarding Seven Samurai? The 3.5-hour Japanese epic.
I know you mentioned that Takashi Shimura as Kanbei was probably your favorite performance.
Yeah.
Was that same for you, Josh?
It was for me. I
mean, I don't think I had a non-favorite performance, but he was the one I definitely was more gravitated to his work and his character. For yourself?
I was really drawn to Toshiro Mifune as Kikuchio. I think I love his character arc from this sort of like drunken goofball who's just kind of annoying everyone, but they sort of bring him along like a stray dog. They're like, I guess we could use a 7th.
Literally wears them down.
He does.
Like, that's the best.
Basically bullies them into being his friend.
He's following them from a distance.
That scene
like
is
they
great.
have left.
That scene is great.
Like they
there's a
walk
guy
from this big town where they recruit the samurai back to the village, which is this big long trek, and he's just following behind, like
about 50 meters back.
And then every time they look back at him, he sort of pretends he's not following, and he's all coy, and he's like, I just happen to be walking on this path as well. And I really enjoyed him. I think he's so sort of big.
He is,
and I get why people don't love those big presences. There's definitely films where there are characters like that I don't enjoy. But I think he grows so much on the screen and his development throughout the film, and I just really, really loved his character and his performance. But
and that scene where he's talking about the farmers and the samurai and that he was a farmer is really like gut punching. It's a really strong scene. That
the scene in question, I mean, I don't think we can get into spoilers too much for a 70-year-old film.
It's
critically acclaimed, but basically these two villagers who live on the outskirts of the village and sort of refuse to come into the big, because the samurai say we can't protect everyone. We're going to sort of fortify the town, and everyone on the outskirts needs to come into the town. This family refused to do that. They're like, well, I'm not protecting other people's houses just so mine can get burnt down. the parents die and the child is sort of the only survivor, and he picks up the child and goes, "This boy is me."
Yeah,
that's pretty much all he says.
But
you know exactly
what he means,
because he sort of hinted that he knows a lot about farming life and the way the farmers think, and he goes, "This boy is me." So he was the survivor. His village got raided by bandits. And it's just, that's the shift. He goes from this comic relief
that is
this character with a lot of depth.
And the comedy then makes so much sense.
Well, it's
his
all
way of
bravado.
That's stuff, right. And then putting on this character to be like, I can do this. I am strong.
That's it. And he's like, I'm not going to be a victim.
Yes.
I've been the victim. I'm not going to be that again. I'm going to be the samurai. I'm going to be the hero. The person that wasn't there to protect me and my family.
It's great character work.
And I think to have that depth across a character when you're dealing with so many different characters as well. Yes, all of the Seven Samurai don't have that level of depth to them, but they still feel very individualistic and like their own distinct characters. So I mean, it's phenomenal.
Do we have a favorite shot from the film? Because the one that stuck out to me, and I don't want to spoil it, is the final shot.
Oh, God.
I think that final shot is superb.
I actually said, because somehow I managed to convince my partner to watch this with me.
Wow.
Getting her to watch a foreign film is tough. Getting her to watch a 3.5 hour film, getting her to watch a film from the 50s is tough.
Everything was against you.
But somehow I did it. And I said so when we were watching it, and that final shot comes up, I went, that shot goes so fucking hard.
It's just the line that is said, and then when it pans, I was just like, that is,
and it's just so perfectly framed and composed. It's that real like cinema is art thing. Right? Like you could just take that still from the film and put it in a frame.
It says so much.
It's with the line as well.
The line is so hard. Is there one that stands out to you, or is that?
No, I mean, of course that is. I mean, but like at the start, some of the scenes with the horse, like just the silhouettes of the like. Talking about going into westerns, like,
true. The sunset shot, right?
And in like in that black and white, it looks incredible.
It looks fantastic. I never want to see it colorized. I don't give a shit.
The way 4K,
that I'll take a 4K remastered.
The way he uses the light and the shadow and like the blend in sort of the grey areas and the black and white. It's
if someone can
so
make
masterfully crafted
in IMAX, like a 4K IMAX version of it. I might fucking keel over and die. Like that would be.
I want to watch it with one of those like fucking wraparound screens.
The Screen X,
and just immerse myself.
Seven Samurai in screen in 40X, and you're on a horse getting thrown around.
It'd be incredible. We've been very slack at doing these on recent episodes, so I'm going to throw you under the bus here, Nick, and say, do you want to elevate a pitch?
Seven Samurai. Seven Samurai is the movie. If you like movies, it's the movie that movies are based on. You like Star Wars, you like Seven Samurai. You like Magnificent Seven, you like Seven Samurai.
Rebel Moon.
If you're one of the 10 people who are not Zack Snyder who liked Rebel Moon, you'll like Seven Samurai. It's the foundation of every great team-up movie ever made. It's epic, it's giant in scale, it's great characters and a great story. It is just the movie.
Perfect.
That's it.
I've watched it and I'm sold.
That's right.
I'll kick off the star ratings. I'm going to do a Kieran 4.5 and give it 5 stars. No. It's a 5-star movie. And as I was watching it, I was almost looking for things to bring it down because I was like, is it actually that good? And that final shot, I was like, this is a 5-star movie. This is incredible. And I'm such a Star Wars fan. Star Wars to me is basically a 5-star movie. I love Western films, like those 70s, 80s era Western films. And the reason I love them is because this movie is so great. So it's a 5-star movie for me.
Josh?
I probably coming from... we talked about this for M. It's so hard to rate these like older
these classics.
Although you had no problems.
No.
So now I feel
I'm riding on my horse.
I totally get it though. And we've spoken about that with older films.
If I probably in the elevator pitch, I feel like if you're not into film, this could be.
It could be tough.
It could be a mammoth effort. Probably not. As I said, I haven't watched a lot of those westerns. Star Wars was good, but I was never so.
You weren't a Star Wars kid?
I wasn't a Star Wars kid. No. Sort of watched it when I was older. So it's amazing, but It's not one of those nostalgic.
For sure.
Yeah. I would go
run the
like
VHS dry like I did.
yeah, that's what I'd probably go a 4-star for me.
4 stars.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is this going to be one of the first times
It
you're
felt-
lower than Kieran?
Yeah.
What's this show?
Less than
Kieran?
I
get it, though.
At the end of it, I felt like I'd run a marathon.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
okay.
I definitely did. I felt like I'd been watching it for about 6 hours.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't remember a time I wasn't watching Seven Samurai.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've always
feel
been
like the
watching
last
it.
month I've been watching this movie ready for the podcast.
That's
Obviously, the influence and what it's done for movies,
Yeah.
you can't deny.
Yeah.
The technical is, you know,
Yeah, it's astounding.
masterful. But yeah, I can't see me watching it again.
Yep.
I do want to watch his other films for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely,
But yeah, probably a little bit mammoth for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, 4 stars.
yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
Where do you think, and question to both of you, where do you think it sort of falls within other, films of this length that you've watched? Does it,
Up there for me. It's pretty high up there.
but does it feel as long as some
No.
of those other 3.5 hour
And
films?
I watched, like, in all honesty, I watched this last night before recording
Yeah,
and
yeah.
started at around 8:30
Yeah.
at night
Yeah.
because I was like, I've got to watch it.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
And I was hooked from the start.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny. Before I even uploaded, I was watching it. I tried watching it 3 different times and had phone calls and pop up. And I was like, I'm just trying to fucking watch
Yeah.
Seven Samurai, guys. Plus, it was my mum, so I shouldn't be like, but I, considering it was that late at night and I didn't finish it till just before midnight, but I was hooked from
Yeah.
start to finish. Like, I loved it. Yeah.
I probably, yeah. I mean,
I
thinking
didn't feel
about
the
films
pace,
of
yeah.
that length, I probably don't deal with that well.
Yeah.
Killers of a Flower Moon.
Yeah.
That
The
was
Irishman.
a huge struggle for me.
See, Irishman's one that I
Doesn't
find that
feel...
didn't feel that
Yeah.
long to me. Yeah, but I'm a sucker for I love gangster crime.
Yeah,
films,
yeah, yeah. I probably haven't seen that many though.
I'm trying to think of
over a
other
3
like
hour.
3 hour. Lawrence
Yeah.
of Arabia. Have you seen that?
No,
Fine.
Gone with the Wind.
Never
That-
seen
That's a damn
4
long
hours.
film.
That is so long.
Even like Lagan. But that was
Lagan-
so entertaining.
it was
you know
really
what I mean? Like,
entertaining,
that's-
Lagan.
This is actually really similar to Lagan.
I would agree. It's literally
Holy
the
shit, it is.
the ragtag cricket
How
team.
did I not pick up on that when we mentioned it?
It's the 7 Samurai of
It
cricket.
is
It really is.
it
The
is.
ragtag team. The English are the bandits.
It is.
They're trying to steal their land, and
They have the goofy.
they have the
How
goofy
do
guy,
you make 7 Samurai better? Yeah, put it on a cricket field.
and you add Bollywood dance
Bollywood
numbers.
dance.
It is. It is.
Yeah, we talked about
Wow.
Rebel Moon. 7 Samurai walked,
it's
so
so
Lagan could fucking dance through the room.
150k per hour
That's so
fastball
good.
coming down the
That's
pit.
really good.
Lagan.
That's
Wow. Yeah, but I it was long, don't get me wrong. I didn't feel like I sat there like that flew by it, but I was so
I was grateful for
Yeah.
the intermission.
Yeah,
100%. Like, I'm not going to deny that. So,
Yeah.
even though I fast forwarded through the intermission and continued watching it,
'Cause
I
you
love
were
the
timed.
score. Yeah, I was like, I want to go to bed. The score of this movie is incredible too. I love the drum.
Yeah,
use
the
of
score is
drums
great.
is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yourself, pace wise, then star rating.
Pace wise, it's definitely one of the easier 3.5 hour films I've watched.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I think about things that get towards that length, like Lawrence of Arabia. That is a long ass movie. Great film, absolutely incredible movie. Damn, it feels long.
you
And
watched
that-
it in the cinema too.
I did,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
right.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't go watch a 3.5 hour film in the cinema.
No, that's all
Apocalypse Now, I think that's a good example of one
Yeah.
that doesn't feel that long.
Yeah.
Um,
There's so much going on in that movie too, which is
Yeah.
funny considering if you could condense seven Samurai to a 2-hour movie. You honestly
yeah, there's a
really
big-
could, because it's not that there's not that much going on. It is, like we said, it's a hangout
the big
movie.
character
big
development,
character.
but
yeah.
you wouldn't get that depth
But you
of
wouldn't,
the
yeah.
character.
No, you wouldn't
that
feel
last
for
shot
them.
doesn't hit hard.
No,
if
that's
you're not
right.
invested
Yeah.
in that,
100%.
Yeah.
So no,
So I think, yeah, it's paced really well for a 3.5 hour film.
yeah, agreed. Start.
I came in at a 4.5. And I-
Stop it.
I think I'm going to go to a 5.
Oh,
done it.
wow.
This is history.
This
This
is
is
only the
history.
second 5 I think
Wow.
I've given in 30 odd
I give a clap
episodes.
for that. That's incredible. I even threw you under the bus on mine. I was like, I'm giving it a Kieran 4.5. I take that back. I apologize. That's
As you fucking should. No, I think because
Fuck
this
yeah.
and this is the first one that I've given 5 on a first watch.
I was about
'cause
to
the
say
Hunt,
that.
The
I was
Hunt
about
I
to say
gave a
that.
5,
Yep.
but I'd seen it before. But this is the first one I've got a 5 off the bat, and I think just talking about it, I'm going, why am I giving it 4.5? I'm just giving it a 4.5 because
And you
I have
liked
this weird thing about Fire Emblem.
Kurosawa more than I did, the character as well. So wow.
So I just talking about it and having you elevator pitch it and just speaking about the influence of it, I go, there's no reason it shouldn't be a 5.
It's the movie.
It's the movie's movie.
It's the movie's movie.
So yeah,
wow,
it's a 5 for me.
Wow,
that's incredible. Well, what a way to start our journey in Akira Kurosawa's filmography. Wow, but yeah, it's an incredible film. It's truly, and I'm shocked that I picked the 3.5 hour movie.
But I'm massive shock.
Yeah, paid off for all of us. So
if you haven't seen it, go see it. Don't be put off by the age, the runtime. It feels well paced. It holds up so well for its age. It doesn't feel dated.
No. And if you want to watch it, when does this break in the fourth wall? When does this episode drop?
This will be out in the start of November.
So you've missed your chance because it's in cinemas in October. But we'll, I mean,
we definitely aren't recording these like several months in advance.
Early, I think if I get the chance, I'm going to try and watch it in the cinema because now I kind of want to see what that is like on the screen.
But I think
definitely check it out.
This is probably the biggest example of a film that we've watched on the show that's made me want to seek out the films of the directors of the films.
Big time, yeah. Doesn't happen all the time, yeah.
No, and there's been times where I've gone, when we watched Mommy, I was like, wow, I want to watch more Xavier Dolan films. But this is like, holy shit, I want to go home right now.
Yeah.
And watch Ikaru and watch
Rand and
Throne of Blood and Rashomon and
Throne of Blood.
Yeah.
Such a cool fucking name for a movie.
That goes hard.
You
thought Seven Samurai goes hard.
Yeah,
Throne of Blood
goes hard. Well, that's another episode of That 1 Inch Barry in the Bag. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Like, subscribe, all the fun little things there. And if you're listening, make sure you're following us on your preferred podcasting platform. That 1 Inch Barrier on Instagram. You can see us put up all of the info about the movies that we're watching, and all of our personal letterbox and Instagrams and socials will be in the show notes. Next episode, we have circled back. We've done the 3 last picks for us, so we're back to a Oscar special.
And boy, are we excited about this one.
Well,
this is if we just did the movie, this is the Oscar special. The movie that arguably is the formative reason this podcast exists, or one of the main formative reasons. It's the namesake of the show, from the patron saint of the show, Oscar winner from 2021. This is the 2020
Oscars for
2019 film. It was the COVID years. It was a weird time. Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, which that's all we'll say. You're not going to want to miss it.
This will be the final
Oscar one for the year.
But foreign Bong Joon.
It will be actually.
Yeah. We've covered all of them now.
The Bong Joon-ho films.
But if you're going to cover any director on this show, it's Bong Joon-ho. So really excited to talk about that one. Yeah. But after that, it's back to our picks and back to the start with Josh. Josh, what have you picked for us to watch next time?
December.
I'm not gonna lie, I hadn't decided up until about 10 minutes ago. Maybe.
This is fun. I love this. No. We had a few going.
I had a few going, but I thought we've done some quite serious. Wanted to go a bit lighthearted again. You know how we were lighthearted with.
We don't want to fall into a depression. That's it. That really lighthearted cannibalism movie. Yes.
We are going to a new country, which I'm quite proud of.
Okay.
We're going to Finland. And we are going to do Sisu.
Yes. I love that movie.
I wanted to go something fun.
Let's do the John Wick of this podcast.
That's right. We're going from 7 Samurai to 1.
No. I like that. We'll leave it there. That's perfect. So Parasite and Sisu coming up on the show, all the show links and whatever. If you want to follow us in real life, you can do that too, but make sure you do it on social media.
Yeah, we'll leave Nick's address in the description.
Phone number, credit card number, everything down there. But until we return for Parasite, we'll see you at Parasite, I guess. Yes. He's the outro intro king. Make sure you leave all my intros.
I like it.
We'll do 10 minutes of intros.
Oh, shit.
Bye.